everyone, and welcome to the 13th episode of the Nature's Cozy podcast. My name is Allison and I am the maker behind Nature's Cozy. You can find me by that username on any social media platform, and welcome to my little cozy corner of the internet. If you are new to this channel or just stumbling upon it, this is a making video where I mainly talk about knitting, and sometimes I talk a little bit about sewing and some very simple crochet projects. Today is only knitting, but I think the next time I podcast I will definitely have some sewing for you because I have gotten the quilting bug, and so I'm just waiting for some material to show up to my parents' house in Chicago, and then I'm going to start making a Christmas quilt. It is currently a semi-gloomy, just cloudy day down here in Champaign, Illinois, and it is the last week of October. And I think it's pretty fitting that the 13th episode is in October as well. I'm currently wearing my October Lovers sweatshirt and just soaking in the last week here. Although I am pretty excited for November. I never liked November growing up because it was like this weird month I was in between, right? You have October and Halloween and spooky season, and then you have December, which is obviously Christmas season, and I love Christmas very much. And so in November, nothing, I don't know, it was just like kind of the end of fall. It was pretty cold. Most of the trees already like lost their leaves, and even though here in the US we have Thanksgiving, I was never a huge fan of Thanksgiving growing up. But I'm actually really excited for Thanksgiving this year. We never really have like a big to do for Thanksgiving. We just have some family, and you know, I watch the Thanksgiving parade with my parents. That's kind of well, that is a tradition that we do. But I think because I've been baking more, and I want to bake a few more items, and I want to bake for Thanksgiving. I don't know, I'm just feeling very homey, so November is feeling very homey to me, and I am excited. I'm excited to just make delicious fall treats and celebrate with the people that are closest to me. So the first thing that I want to talk about in regards to making are my Hibernation House socks. These are by Lindsey of Lost and Fawn, so this is Lindsey Fowler, and these were a test knit that I did for her. I believe she says they're coming out November 12th. She finally gave a release date for this pattern, and it is, I talked about them last time, but I finished them last month. It is a mohair cuff. And then you have this really pretty waffle pattern on the bottom. It's showing up a little bit more red on my camera than what it actually is. It's red, but it's just not as bright. And then the waffle pattern also goes into the heel. And I knit the women's large, and I believe that's like a men's medium or something like that, or men's small. The yarn is Woolberry Fiber Co. and her flannel pajamas colorway. This was a club colorway, so it's not available anymore. It's an 80-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon, and then the yarn, the mohair that I used was Knitting for Olive in the claret colorway. If it focuses, yeah. So you can kind of see. And I love these socks very, very much. They were a lot of fun to knit. This is the first time I added mohair to my sock, and I'm kind of happy that it's just in the cuff just to see how I kind of wear them. I know adding mohair to the foot is becoming popular. I'm a little bit nervous about that. If I do that, like adding mohair, I know mohair is supposed to be super strong. I think they call it nature's nylon. But I don't know, I guess I think about like my cats back at home, and I don't know if it would attract like more catness to it. But I really like how it's on the cuff here, and it just makes it really, really cozy, and I'm really, really excited to wear these for the winter time. When Lindsey releases that pattern, she's actually going to be releasing a companion design as well. And so the waffle pattern that is on the bottom of these socks, she is actually releasing another pattern where it's the waffle pattern design all along the foot. And that was another thing that I was able to test knit for her. And I believe that you can buy this separately, or if you buy that pattern, you get this as a companion pattern. And yeah, let's see if it's focusing. There we go. So this is Explorer Knits in her Banff National Park colorway, and I think they turned out really, really nice. These are actually going to be a Christmas present for my uncle. He wears a 10.5 men's foot. So I actually use the same stitch count that I did for those socks with these socks as well. Obviously he has a bigger foot than me, so I had to knit a longer foot. But one thing that I did kind of notice was the first sock that I knit, I felt exactly as Lindsey had it, because obviously I'm test knitting and that's what you should do, unless your designer said it's okay for you to like modify and all of that. But yeah, so the first sock that I knit, I followed, you know, her directions, but when I measured the yarn after, I realized that I used over 50 grams for the foot, and usually if I knit socks for my uncle, I am okay just using one skein of yarn. So I modified the second sock that I knit for Lindsey just a little bit. So once I got to the foot portion, I just decreased a couple more stitches than usual, and that worked just fine. I won at Yarn Chicken, and yeah, so I really, when I gift knit, I like to gift knit something with a pattern. Every once in a while I'll gift knit just plain vanilla socks, but I don't know, I think I always like to do just a little bit extra, but I don't mind purling usually in general, except on socks. I kind of have like a little bit of, I don't know, I think it just kind of hurts sometimes with my hands, like it gets a little bit more like tight. I think this will be like my go-to sock pattern for when I want to knit someone a pair of socks as a gift, because this to me, I don't know, usually I'll do like a broken ribbed pattern, but I kind of really love how these turned out. And yeah, I love the rhythm of how these were knit up. It's not a crazy amount of purling, so I don't know, it was like the right amount of purling while adding texture and just elevating a vanilla sock a bit. So like I said, this is Explorer Knits, and I hope my uncle loves these. The next project that I finished, I did not show on the last episode. I actually casted this on a couple weeks ago and I finished it last weekend, and it was the perfect knit. It was the knit that I needed the most, and that is the Oslo Hat by PetiteKnit. This is also knit out of yarn that would have been Stash Acquisition. This is Woolberry Fiber Co, her Martha Vineyard colorway, on her Mohair, and on her berry sock, which is 80/20 superwash BFL and nylon. And it's really, really pretty. You kind of see all those like colors, speckles. I cast it on this hat because honestly I was having a really bad day a couple weeks ago. Just a lot of anxiety and just very overwhelmed with everything that was going on with school and life, and I just needed something very simple and mindless and comforting. And I planned on making the Oslo Hat by PetiteKnit with this yarn, and this is the Mohair edition, because she has like two versions of it, and it was exactly what I needed. This was a very, very comforting knit. The rhythm of it was just perfect, and let me see, I have a ponytail, so it might kind of pop up in the back, but yeah, this is gonna be just kind of like that perfect hat for Christmas, or not just Christmas, for like winter. It is a folded brim, but it's like folded over twice, so it's just super comfy and warm. I always like get a little not like super self-conscious, but just like, is my head shaped weird whenever like I put a hat on? But yeah, I love it. I actually am making a couple hats for Christmas, and this is the hat that I'm going to be making for the other people in my life that I'm making hats for two reasons. One, because I do think this is a really good winter hat, and two, I just need simple knitting right now in my life, and this just really fits the bill. So I casted on the it's not the largest size, it's the second to largest, or second to last, I should say. I think that's an adult medium. And she uses a 2.5, a US 2.5 in the pattern. I use a US 3. I believe that's a 3.5 millimeter, but it's a US 3. And my gauge is totally, it's on point. Like I measured it and everything is good. But it did feel like a little bit snug on my head, and so I wasn't sure if maybe I needed to, maybe I should have knit the largest size. I am knitting a second one right now, which I will show in a second, that has a little bit of cashmere in it, and you can tell that it's a little bit more loose. I am knitting the larger size for that one though. But the other thing I realized is that this is BFL, so I love the feel of BFL, but I've only knit with it once before, and I knit a pair of socks. And I realized that those pair of socks don't stretch as much as my superwash merino. So I wonder if that's maybe why it just feels a little bit tighter, because of the BFL. And maybe, yeah, maybe I should have gone up the largest size, but I don't know. I think it's more so to do with the yarn, but it still fits really, like, it still fits fine. I still love it a lot, and I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. And then the second Oslo, I'm assuming it's Oslo hat, is actually in a new bag by Birch Grove, and this is an eco print, so she prints with leaves, and I just thought it was super cute. This is like really good for, it's like a little sock bag, and it's a really good sock bag. But in here I have my Oslo hat for one of my family members, and I'm already kind of on the second portion of the hat, so it looks a little weird because it's rolling, but it'll be tacked down. And I have this is like a very wintry colorway to me, and it's reminding me a lot of Christmas, so I decided to use a little like festive progress keeper on it. And this is by the Gnome Knitter. It's just a little festive donut, and this is again Woolberry Fiber Co. I'm sorry if it's blowing out a little bit, but this is, like I said prior, it is an 80-10-10 on her cashmere base, and this is her Snow Globe colorway. This came out with her Advent last year. So again, you can only get this if you bought the Advent last year, and this is her Snow Kissed Mountain Mohair. And at first when I put them together, I wasn't sure if this was going to be too creamy of a colorway to match with this. Maybe I should have done like an all white, but I kind of really like how it's coming out, and it really reminds me of just fallen snow, especially in like January where you have that blue hour, and it's just, especially after like a fresh snowfall and everything is just like powdered, and the blue from like the morning sky is just like hitting it, and it's just super quiet. That's what this hat reminds me of. So the person I'm knitting this for really loves blue, and so I really hope that they love this hat. And regardless, like I said prior, I think these are going to be really great warm hats for the winter. I have two more projects to talk about. The one I'm going to kind of show next, I wasn't really sure if I should show it or if I should wait, because it's just a little tiny Bluebird of happiness, but I decided that I'm just going to show this to you now because I did it a little bit differently than what the pattern called for. or how I constructed it. So last time I believe I showed you this little dude. This was Explorer Knits in her Great Smoky Mountain, but you can kind of see there's like stuffing kind of coming out with it in certain spots. Whereas this one is much neater. You don't really see any of that stuffing popping out, and so it's a little bit more plump. Yeah, two little turtles. Anyway, so this is also Explorer Knits in her Petrified Forest colorway, and in the pattern, it's a free pattern, she has you knit the body, knit the tail, keep the tail open, you don't close it, you go back and knit the head, close it, and then you stuff it. I had a hard time stuffing this one when I did it that way, and I had a hard time like where the stuffing is coming out, like closing those gaps. Like this one's for me. This one's just like a little prototype. This one I'll be giving away for Christmas. But what I ended up doing was I knit the body and the tail and I closed the tail, and then I picked up for the head, and then I started stuffing before I started working on the head. Because that way then if there was any stuffing or any holes that were showing, I was able to kind of weave in ends and stuff and close those up, and then as I just continued on the head, I just kept stuffing, and yeah, I think it turned out a lot better. And I just wanted to mention that in case other people were thinking about knitting these maybe for Christmas, as Christmas gifts like I'm doing. I still have like 6 more to make, but if you find that you're having issues with the stuffing too, that's just something that I would recommend. So yeah, I think they came out really cute, and I can't wait to make some more of these. Last project. What a doozy, this one. So I am working on my Ronin cardigan by Andrea Mowry. This is something that I've been showing on the past few episodes. If you don't know what it looks like, this is what it is. And yeah, I've had an interesting time with this cardigan. So I'm knitting this out of Brooklyn Tweed in their Shelter colorway, no, Shelter base on, I believe it's called Wool Socks. Yeah, so here's like a skein of the color. It's like a brick red, and this is where I was last time, my little sunflower by Lock and Lou. And this is how much I have knit. So I've knit the body and I've knit the sleeves. I know the sleeves look a little weird, but that's because they drop down pretty like far on the arm. They're not like, it's not right underneath your armpit, so that's why it looks a little short. And I still have to do the collar on this cardigan, but she actually has you block the cardigan first, and then you pick up and knit the collar, and then you can either block it again or steam it. So I am knitting the I think it's like the 50 or like 50 and some, like a quarter or 3/4 of the chest measurement. I think that's like right in the middle. And I went down, so I think if you watched last time, I had some issues with my gauge, like width-wise. I don't know if that's like a stitch gauge. And so I had to recast on, and now this is fine. My gauge this way, but my gauge, my row gauge is very, very off. And it's so off, like I don't even understand. So I modified it, I adjusted it, all the right types of increases are in there, but I ended up actually having to rip back, like, so I knit a bunch and then I ended up ripping back about 4.5 inches, like somewhere here, before I split for the sleeves, because when I was working with this cardigan, I was knitting and knitting, and I had about, I think like 10 more rows to knit on before I split for the sleeves. I was like, well, let me measure, because she has, you know, like the from the cast on edge to where you're supposed to split for the sleeves, like the length that it's supposed to be. I was like, well, let me just measure and kind of see where I'm at. I was 2 inches over what she said. And so I ended up ripping back until I was done increasing. And then I was looking at the pattern more, and she actually had, for my size, increasing a lot more. Like, I thought it was like 30 or 40 rows, but I re-looked again yesterday, and it's actually like closer to 60 rows before I was supposed to split for the sleeves. Unless I'm reading this pattern very wrong, which I don't think so, because it's fairly straightforward. I don't understand how I can be 60 rows or like 56 rows off. That just makes no sense to me. I even went down a needle size, so I went down to a US 8, and the pattern is knit with a US 9. And yeah, I don't know, but we're here. It's the length it's supposed to be. This is the first time that I did brioche, and I'm sorry if you can hear the garbage trucks outside. But yeah, so this was the first time that I did brioche. I did watch, she did have a video on like her 2-color brioche and how to do it, and I just watched that and it was fine. I like brioche, and then I felt like I had kind of a love-hate relationship when I did this. The brioche stitch is easy, that was fine. I do have to kind of figure out how to fix it better. I don't know if you can kind of see here, but I did kind of mess up where I alternated what was supposed to be the brioche stitch versus the non-brioche stitch, and then when I tried to kind of go down, I didn't really properly fix it, but it's only really in like that little spot and no one's gonna notice. But yeah, so that's something that I still kind of have to figure out. And then yeah, I guess with like the brioche, and I knit this on a US 6, and I believe she knit this on a US 7. Yes, okay, I just double checked. She did knit this on a US 7. I went down to a US 6. And as I was knitting it, I was like, I feel like this is taking forever. Like, I know that it's a smaller needle, so it's not gonna grow as much. I was like, it's taking forever. And then I was watching one of the older Legacy Fiber Arts, or Legacy Arts podcast, and Sue was talking about how she was doing brioche, and she's like, yeah, well, you know, every row, it's like you're knitting it twice because of the way brioche works. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So that's why I felt like it was taking a much longer time. So besides just changing where I increase and stuff in order to get the right length, the only other thing that I've kind of changed so far is that the sleeves are pretty much supposed to be all brioche from like where the underarm is, but I started doing that and I just didn't like it. I didn't like how it was looking. So I kind of ripped back, and then I did a stockinette sleeve, and then the last like 3 inches I did a brioche like cuff instead, and I like how it looks better. That section, if you look, is pretty tight. Well, it's a little tight on me, but yeah, you can kind of see. I hope you can kind of see that. Sorry, there's a little glare, but it's a lot longer than what I have it as. And the only other thing that I guess I'm a little bit concerned about is the sleeve. When you split for it, it's a lot lower than most sleeves. You can kind of see that here. I should just take it out. You can kind of see here how it's a little bit lower, and I don't know, it feels a little weird. But I have to block. I think once I block it, I kind of see how it fits more. And I think if I put the collar, because it kind of comes down a little bit, but I think once I add the collar, it'll bring a little bit more weight to the front. So yeah, I mean, I still am really enjoying knitting it. I love the yarn, but it's just little different construction wise than what I was anticipating. My mom just texted me, and apparently it's snowing in Chicago right now, so I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to get snow down here in Champaign, and quite frankly, I can't handle the snow right now. As much as I'm very excited for the Christmas season, snow needs to wait until the day after Thanksgiving, in my opinion. Anyways, that's all I have for my knitting. I was going to talk a little bit more about my stash acquisitions. I have the regular culprits, Woolberry Fiber Co, Homespun House, Explore Knits, but I also have kind of like an impulse buy that I'm very happy with. It's just one skein, so yeah, so I will show you just my little 3 Patreon minis that I got from a Homespun House. I like to show these just in case she ever decides to bring them back. This is the Juniper colorway, this is a one of a kind, and this is her Sprout colorway. And then so those are for Patreon if you are signed up for the tier that gets the minis. Yeah, and then the next stash acquisition that I have to show are my Lord of the Rings Woolberry Fiber Co colorways. So we're almost to an end. This club is almost done. This is Return of the King. And I think she said I thought this was the second to last, but I guess I'm off. And she said that she's going to be combining the last 2 in one package. So next time I'll have a lot of yarn to show. But this is Mordor. And these are all in her berry sock, which is that BFL base I was talking about earlier. And this is the Precious colorway. It's such a pretty like golden yellow. Yeah, so those are those 2. And then the Explore Knits one was Yellowstone National Park. Now I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have probably seen this on her Instagram page. This is by far my favorite out of the 6 that we have done. I'll probably end up making a hat out of this because I need to show it off. Yellowstone, I've been to Yellowstone. It was one of my favorite trips that I ever went on. My boyfriend and I went to Grand Teton in Yellowstone about 5 years ago. I really, really want to go back. And this was her inspiration photo. Now, regardless of the inspiration photo, this colorway really captures, in my opinion, Yellowstone. Like even looking at photos that I took, it's very similar color scheme. So, and then this was the back quote in case anybody wants to read that. And so without further ado, I mean, it's perfect. So this is on her Denali base, which is an 80/20. This is all the yarn that I usually get from her is on her Denali base, because that way I always have the option of making socks if I want to. I mean, yeah, she already had a pre-order for this, and if you bought some, good. I think for her BAMF, she still will open up a pre-order for that one, which was the Hearth and Home socks. Oh, I don't even think I said that. The other socks that I was knitting for Lindsey, that was the companion pattern, those are called the Hearth and Home socks. Sorry. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's really, really pretty. And definitely has to be a hat of some sort. And then the last skein that I got, I had Christmas yarn already picked out that I got last year. The 2 Christmas movies that really are near and dear to my heart are The Nutcracker and The Santa Claus. The Nutcracker was my favorite Christmas movie growing up. I used to watch it over and over again. I might butcher his name. Is it Macaulay Culkin? He was like the little boy, like Nutcracker, and my parents were like, I don't understand how you watched that so much as a kid because it's just dancing, but I used to dance growing up. And last Christmas Eve, Woolberry Fiber Co, they had a Nutcracker Christmas Eve open up, and that's what I got. And so that's what I originally planned on casting on for this Christmas, which I still might if I have time. But then Legacy Fiber Arts, they released their Christmas collection, and it was based off of the Santa Claus. And so I thought, well, I just kind of have to. So this is the Prancer colorway. I feel like there's so many noises going on outside right now, so I apologize. Yeah, so this is, it's so pretty. This is on their 75/25 steel toes. And I'm not sure, I think they might have some in their shop still. I'm not really sure. I think all of their sock sets sold out. But yeah, I think I'm gonna make, I really want to make some Into the Wood socks. So, you know, for those of you who might be aware, there's a thing called a Make 9 that us knitters tend to make at the beginning of the year. I have made nothing on my Make 9, and the Into the Wood socks is one of the patterns that is on my Make 9. So, you know, this might be a good way to kind of sneak it in. But I also think, just since it's based off of like pine trees and everything like that, I think it would just be really perfect for Christmas, and I think this would be a really fun colorway to do that with. Before I talk about books, I cannot believe I almost forgot to mention this. I did an interview, you guys. I did an interview with Nicole from Thyme Weaver. I will link that interview down below if you wanted to check it out. I know I mentioned it on my Instagram stories, but I don't know how many people have saw that, or I don't know how many people are interested in watching it. But Nicole is awesome. I would highly, highly recommend checking out her channel. She actually does videos in English and in Spanish. She is based in Spain, and I think that's awesome. It's just a great way to reach out to more knitters, and also if you are someone who speaks Spanish or is trying to learn Spanish and you just want to like keep up listening, I think it'd be a great way to watch those videos and, you know, kind of listen to that. I know someone who speaks Spanish. I don't like know her personally, she's a YouTuber, but she'll listen to audiobooks in Spanish, and I was like, wow, that's such a great way to keep the language like constant, or you know, just be continuing experiencing the language, especially if you don't have someone to talk to you, and so you don't lose it, is what I'm trying to say. But words are a little bit hard this morning, so yeah, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, check it out if you want to, and even if you don't want to watch me, she has a lot of other people, so you can find someone new. I think she's actually interviewing Christy Glass. I think that's coming out in like a day or so, so that will be a lot of fun. Yeah, and so I am going to talk about books right now, but if you are not interested in books, I want to say thank you so much for checking out my channel, and actually really thank you so much for watching me, and if you're a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. I don't have, you know, I don't have like a super big YouTube channel or anything like that, but I do notice that after every video, there's always a few more subscribers, and I'm like really appreciative of all the people who take the time out to watch my videos, even if it's only for like 20 minutes or 10 minutes, or maybe you watch the whole thing. If you watch the whole thing, you're probably watching this now, so thank you so much for, you know, just all your support. And if you're not a subscriber and you want to subscribe, that helps me reach out to other people. And again, if you like this video, please give it a like. So if you are still watching me, I should have mentioned this before I switched over to the book segment, but I'm just gonna mention it really quickly now. The new making magazine came out, and you guys, it is so awesome. This is by far my favorite making magazine. The most patterns they have are knitting patterns, for those of you who may not be aware, but they have a bunch of other things like embroidery and a lot of sewing, punch needles. Sometimes they have like cooking and stuff too. But I just kind of wanted to show a couple of the patterns. So this one I thought was super, super sweet. They're just like little owls by Susan B. Anderson. And then this one, which I was talking to my friend Avi about yesterday, is called the Intricate Pullover by Nora Gon. I think that's how you say her last name. And I just think it's so pretty. yeah, so I'd highly recommend, if you were thinking about checking it out, 100% support Making Magazine. I have read 3 books since the last time we chit-chatted. So the first book that I have finished is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and this was average. For those of you who may not be aware, so The Handmaid's Tale follows this handmaid. So what happens is it's based in America, and then something occurs and women lose their rights, and all of a sudden they're kind of thrown into these different roles. And so the handmaids in this story are women who are give birth to men's children when their wives cannot conceive. So they're really just, that's their duty, is to get pregnant and have a kid for these people, whether or not they actually want to or not. And you know, I've talked about before, I've heard amazing things about the TV show. I've been wanting to watch the TV show for quite a while. For like the past 2 years is when I really started learning about this show. But I always wanted to read the book first, and it was just average. I was expecting so much better. It had the potential, in my opinion, to be so much better. You follow our main character. Her name is Offred. Yeah. That's her name in this like dystopian culture, dystopian world, country that she lives in. It's like it was like kind of dragged for the first half of the book, and then the second half of the book was just kind of peaks and valleys. Like something would start happening and you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen next, and you keep reading and reading, and then just like meh, we're just gonna like drag it again, and then start to make something happen. Like nothing actually ever fully happened in the story. And the craziest thing, the thing that you wanted to know the most about, happens all the way at the end, and then she doesn't like really tell you. The last like part is in the future, after this world gets it's like deconstructed, or I know I'm trying to think of, not like deconstructed, I'm trying to think of the word, once this world falls. So it happens in the future, like the last part, historical notes, and it kind of like, they're like, oh, they found this handmaid's diary, and they try to make out like what happened to her and all that stuff. So it was just kind of like, it was okay. I was expecting more. I haven't started watching the TV show just because I know it's gonna be a heavy show, and while I was all for it earlier in the season, now I'm just kind of like, I just need happiness in my life right now, because other things, you know, like between just everything that's going on and school and stuff, I'm very stressed out. So I started rewatching Gilmore Girls, and I'm very happy about that. I love Gilmore Girls so much. It's my favorite show. It's just the best. I'm on season 2 right now, so that's what I'm going to continue watching until I feel okay to watch The Handmaid's Tale. So then the second book, the last 2 books were actually both audiobooks that I listened to. So the first one, sorry, I have it on my phone because I don't remember the authors. It's called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and that one was also okay. So I gave The Handmaid's Tale a 3 out of 5 stars, and The Power of Habit I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. I guess I just wasn't expecting the book to be the way it was. So it talks about habit, and I'm trying to change some of my bad habits, so I wanted to like read a book to like help motivate me and like figure out like what are some things that might be like some little tricks that help like my brain like switch habits. And the book basically breaks down into, there's a cue, there's a routine, and there's a reward. So something cues the habit, then the routine of like partaking in said habit, and then what's the reward that you get from doing that habit. And it was interesting. Like so there's a lot of case studies, so a lot of like different medical and business, and I wasn't really expecting that. So it was very just like information driven, and sometimes just like a little too much, because like it wasn't like a super inspirational, motivating book, just more so like, oh, here's a bunch of examples of this cue, routine, reward, and how habits are kind of formed. And how some businesses might take advantage of those habits. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, I think you would really like it. But if you're wanting more of like a motivational, like you can do it type of book, that's not the book for you. Then the next book that I read was Well Met by Jen DeLuca. So this book was actually my cousin's favorite, was one of her favorite books. She is the Books of Morgan. I'll link her page down below. She has a booktube for those of you who haven't been watching from the beginning. And yeah, so I listened after those other two books. I needed something very lighthearted and something I knew I was going to enjoy. I ended up giving that book 4 out of 5 stars. It was very cute. It was exactly kind of what I needed. It's a little bit cheesier. I think with like rom-coms, there has to be that balance between being cheesy and not cheesy, or just the balance of how much cheesiness that you're going to get. So if something's just a little too cheesy for me, I just like a little too much. Earlier in the summer I read Beach Read, which is a very similar, it's the same genre. You know, they kind of have that same like outcome type of thing. And I like that one a little bit more. So with Well Met, you follow your main character, Emily, and she moves to this small town in Maryland. She's helping her sister and her niece because her sister got into a really bad car accident, and her niece wants to partake in the town's Renaissance Fair. And the guy who runs the Renaissance Fair, Simon, is this like prude man that Emily thinks of, and it's one of those stories that's like an enemies to lovers type of trope. And so I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, like I said, very fun. If you need something very lighthearted, I think that's a good book. I think the narrator was pretty good too. I always have sometimes an issue with audiobooks and the narrators, but yeah, overall I would say that was it was really fun, and I highly recommend if you like those type of books. I actually just wanted to talk about these really quick too. So I haven't started reading this, but this is the book, The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I'm going to start this tonight. So it's actually my pick for book club. We're supposed to have a book club this month, but we're going to do a book club next month and talk about 2 books. And good, because I didn't even start it. So I'm going to do that later. But then the other, I guess, book that I bought is this Pillow Thoughts, the 4th installment of the collection. And so this is actually like a poetry book. I've never really bought poetry before. I never really had, it's like the idea of reading poetry always seemed really fun, but I never actually tried to really read it. I think I read some older like people. But I was recently watching Emily from the Quiet Happiness Knits, and she read this poem, and it really spoke to me, and it made me really want to start looking at poetry more. And I was at Target yesterday, and this just kind of, I didn't plan on buying this book, but I don't know, I think because things just feel very like stressful and a little bit hard, it just popped out. I haven't read the other 3 books prior to this. I don't know if the author really plans on you reading the first 3 before this one, or you know, whatever. I mean, eventually I think I will end up buying the other ones, but I think 2 things really drew me to this book. 1, the fox, because fox, and 2, it said stitching the soul, and since my soul needs a little bit of happiness, and stitching just reminds me of the fiber arts, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy it. And I was flipping through it, I read a few, and I did like where she was kind of going with this, and so I did start reading some of the poems. I don't plan on, I want to like just read a few every day and just kind of really think about them, or if I can. Yeah, so if you guys have any poetry books that you would really recommend, that you really love, please leave them down below, any of your recommendations. So yeah, that is all that I have to share today. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend if you're watching this on the weekend. Happy Halloween. My dad's birthday is on Halloween, so I will wish him a happy birthday on Saturday. And I just hope you're enjoying this last week of spooky season and eating all of the delicious pumpkin treats. And I will talk to you guys in a few weeks. Have a good one. Bye.